I'm a postdoc here at MIT working on a long-term vision of building patient-specific medical devices directly inside of the patient's body. Now, before I get started, I will ask you all to imagine how you would feel if you were at your doctor's appointment and they said you've got a ticking time bomb sitting inside of your heart that could go off at any moment and could be disabling or fatal. This frightening situation is a reality for millions of patients that are suffering from atrial fibrillation, which is the most common arrhythmia in the world, characterized by this irregular quivering of the heart's upper chambers. With this irregular quivering, you can get blood that pools in the heart where it will form clots, and then they can dislodge and move their way up to the brain, where they will have catastrophic effects. Based on this, these patients are at much, much higher risk of stroke. Accordingly, most of these patients will end up on blood thinners for the rest of their life. However, even with the newest generation drugs, rates of non-adherence remain really high, as well as rates of clinically relevant bleeding. And if you were to just miss a single dose, that ticking time bomb will come right back. Interestingly, if you look at the data, over 90% of these stroke-causing blood clots are formed in this tiny little outpouching called the left atrial appendage that hangs off of the left side of your heart. Statistically, by the time I'm done speaking, another patient will suffer a devastating stroke that was formed right in that little outpouching. Based on that striking data, the field of left atrial appendage occlusion was formed, with the basic idea that we could just seal off this problematic structure to solve the stroke problem. Here, you use a femoral venous access approach to get to the heart in a minimally invasive way. And then once you're inside the heart, you can actually just deploy one of these expandable devices to plug and seal off the appendage. This would be ideal because it's a minimally invasive, one-time solution that allows these patients to avoid the need for long-term blood thinners. However, all of the existing devices are these round, metallic, prefabricated structures that come in a pretty limited set of predefined sizes. And unsurprisingly, patients don't look like that. Unfortunately for engineers, patients are not standardized. And so every single person in this room, if we put you in a CT scanner, would have a different size and shape of your appendage. So what does that mean functionally? Well, this profound mismatch really drives pretty high rates of incomplete closure of the appendage, which is the ultimate goal of the procedure, as well as clotting on the surface of the device and local tissue damage. Further, clinicians have consistently voiced frustration with the number of steps that are required in the procedure to try to minimize that mismatch, as well as challenges with the highly technical deployment. So our solution is to leverage the same catheter-based approach to get to the heart in a minimally invasive way, and then deliver biomaterials directly through this catheter to the target location, where we'll expand a conformable casing that will match the patient's anatomy on the fly, providing a perfect seal with a soft biopolymeric implant that will encourage rapid tissue overgrowth. If realized, this would allow us to dramatically decrease the rates of incomplete occlusion, as well as limit the effects of device-related clotting and tissue trauma. Further, we envision that this will allow us to eliminate many of those tricky and challenging and frustrating pre-procedural and intra-procedural steps. So how do we go from concept to actually turning this into a reality? It was built on a lot of blood, sweat, and tears inside the lab, but eventually we were able to develop these hydrogel formulations that could flow like a liquid through the catheter and then self-heal on the other side to act like a solid again, so we could actually perform this volumetric 3D manufacturing at a distant target location. We then showed that these could be used to actually do on-the-fly shape matching, where you can match any sort of arbitrary anatomy in any sort of arbitrary 3D orientation. Finally, we showed that we could add an outer casing to allow us to complete the same process in anatomies relevant for the clinical application in fluid-filled environments. Finally, we showed that we can make these gels radiopaque and actually watch this procedure through intraprocedural imaging, and have moved on to early-stage large animal testing. Moving forward, we've got a few main goals. We're working towards our second-generation prototype, as well as collecting key benchtop data, ultimately moving towards large animal validation of the safety and efficacy of the approach. The long-term goal is to spin out a company from MIT and move towards clinical trials for a Class 3 PMA. The market is already worth over $1 billion a year, despite being a relatively new procedure, and it's expected to grow as the population continues to age and develop more comorbidities. We will focus first on the subset of really complex patients that don't have a chance with the existing solutions, and we expect to join as the field continues to grow and mature and potentially move towards first-line status in this aging population. The platform itself is relatively generalizable, so we filed for broad IP and are interested in a number of other clinical indications as well in the future. All of this work was enabled by a really great team of scientists, engineers, clinicians, and business professionals drawn together from across this Harvard and MIT community. But of course, we need more people, so we're asking for connections to interventional cardiologists and cardiac EPs, as well as to professionals in the medtech space with experience on the early stage, preclinical de-risking, as well as early stage medtech fundraising. And so with that, we hope you'll join us on our journey to bring the concept of personalized medicine to the device space and help us help these patients live a life free from the fear of a devastating stroke.